It pisses me off how nobody seems to understand this current generation. Whenever I speak to the older generation or whenever I see them publish articles or speak on the news in regards to this current generation, it is always negatively skewed. They refer to us as unambitious, lazy, sometimes unintelligent in comparison to older generations, not knowing that this current crop of individuals amongst this generation are completely different to the previous generations. What they tend to do is they try to apply old rules that worked in older generations to this current generation, trying to replicate the same results. For example, they expect you to work and break your back, sacrifice yourself for a company just for what? A little bit of pension. That doesn't mean Gen Z doesn't want to work. That doesn't mean that Gen Z are not ambitious, but they know their worth. And the thing that the older generation don't understand about this current generation is we no longer identify as our work. Back in the days, even you can look 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, when you speak to somebody, their entire identity is their work or is their job, whatever professional title that they have. That isn't the case anymore. Gen Z are starting to understand that there's much more to life. There's much more things out there that we can go out and seek and do that would give us true fulfillment and actually align with our purpose. But that doesn't mean they don't want to work. And I was actually reading an article this morning that I can show you guys. If you guys can see, right? I would say pause the screen and give it a read. But essentially the title says, Gen Z are increasingly becoming NEETs by choice. NEET stands for not in employment, education or training. And they went as far as labeling us as unambitious, lazy, disloyal, even as far as saying we are unintelligent in comparison to the older generations. But they don't understand that their rules don't work no more. This is the first ever generation where we are actually suffering from success. The average kid has more information at their fingertips than everybody historically or everybody combined historically ever did. And that's a problem. And this is the breeding ground to then a lot more things that you currently see amongst the younger generation, which is the title of this video. The reason why most young kids are lost nowadays, the reason why most young kids are stuck nowadays is simply because of information overload. The amount of information you have in your mind currently is not healthy. It's not good for you. How many things do you know about random business models? How many things do you know about random careers? How many things do you know about masculinity and femininity and how to be a man and how to be a woman? The reality is you know too much, which is why I'm actually making this video, because if you're currently stuck or lost in life, this video is perfect for you, because now going into 2025, we can feed into your New Year's resolutions, which I don't believe in, by the way. And if you're watching this after 2025, it still applies. So let's actually get started with this. If you're currently lost in life, you're typically suffering from one of three things. Number one, you have no money to progress. Number two, you have no purpose to succeed. And number three, you have no motivation to get started. And these are all linked, by the way. You have no purpose because you have no motivation. You have no motivation because you have no purpose. You have no money because you have no purpose. And you also have no money because you have no motivation. Luckily, by the end of this video, you're going to understand by fixing one of these, you can fix all three. So let's begin with purpose. A lot of individuals nowadays, both men and women, lack purpose nowadays, especially men. And typically this is characterized by you working a job that you don't like or you're unemployed. You're surrounded by people that are unambitious, that don't remind you of the greater purpose in life. And what do they do in the West? When it comes to the weekend, you go outside, you go party, you go play games, you watch football, and then you cope. And then it is a never-ending cycle. It's a very vicious cycle. And most times people don't understand that your purpose can actually be found if you spend some time with yourself. But instead, you sit down, you continue going to a job that you hate, you continue being surrounded by people that don't remind you about anything beneficial. And then to couple this, or to top it all off, on the weekends, you go out party and you completely waste your time. And you need to understand that you cannot find your purpose, or you lack purpose, because of two things primarily. Number one is certainty, and number two are limiting beliefs. I'm going to go into certainty in a bit more detail because we've heard limiting beliefs before. Certainty is your addiction to stability and predictability. The biggest downfalls of humans, especially men. You're addicted to earning the same paycheck because you know where it's coming from. You eat at the same places. You hang around the same people. You essentially live a life that is very comfortable. And the brain loves comfort. The brain doesn't love discomfort. You need to understand that if you want to do something new, your body is going to reject it. Your mind's going to reject it. You have to force yourself. But what most people tend to do is they end up sitting down and they succumb to their circumstances and they end up essentially living a life that's very comfortable. You're at your mum's house, you don't contribute to rent, you work a job that you don't like, but it pays you just about enough. Nobody seems to be speaking about this. Have you noticed that certain jobs, right? For example, like security, Uber, they pay you just enough that you don't think about the bigger picture. For example, I used to work in security before, and one of the biggest downsides, which really didn't align with my purpose, was I was earning enough money to pay for my normal lifestyle. I could pay my car insurance, I could buy clothes, I could go on a holiday every now and then, and that kept me stagnant. I then became addicted to stability and predictability. And you need to understand that this is a vicious cycle that will continue and will always leave you dissatisfied. So the first one is certainty. The second one are limiting beliefs, and these couple with certainty, because whenever somebody's addicted to comfort, they usually have this victim mindset where they have these limiting beliefs that forces them to blame their environment and their circumstances. Some of us haven't been dealt good cards. You might have grown up in a household where you were very poor, single mother household, or you may have failed your school. You might have been academically bad. But that doesn't mean that you blame your circumstances and your environment and then you use that as an excuse to not do anything with your life. As that quote goes, it's not about the cards that you're dealt, rather how you play the hand. And how you play the hand actually empowers you, because you no longer put force or you no longer give power to whatever circumstances or environment that you were raised in. Rather, you take initiative and you tell yourself, you know what? It doesn't matter how bad my household was. You know what? It doesn't matter how bad my grades were. I'm still going to go out there and really try to do something with my life. So the reason why you can never find purpose are two things: certainty, your addiction to stability and predictability, and also limiting beliefs. So if you're probably wondering, how does one find purpose? The first thing I'm going to tell you straight off the bat is purpose isn't found through a YouTube video like this. Purpose isn't found through buying a course. Purpose isn't found through watching documentaries. You need to look inwards. And how to find your purpose is pretty similar to what makes me happy. And a lot of people don't sit down with themselves. How many of you guys have ever sat down with yourselves and really wrote down what you like and what your strengths are? And if you don't know what your strengths are, you need to go outside and try a bunch of things. Before I get into how to find your purpose, if you really lack in the strength department and you don't know how to find your strengths, that is simply because you haven't done much with your life. A lot of people DM me regularly and they ask me, oh, I don't know what my strengths are. I don't know what I'm good at. It's because you haven't done anything. And this is the beauty of life. The younger you are, the more risk tolerant you have to be. If I don't know what career I want to get into, if I don't know what I'm good at, I'm going to try a whole bunch of different careers. And now you can do it through internships, work experiences. You could just go ask a random company, can I shadow you for one day just to see what a day in their life is like? But instead, what do? You sit at home and you watch Day in the Lives. That's not going to teach you anything. You really need to put yourself in the field so you can at least have some sort of analytics, some sort of data that then gives you an idea of what you're good at and what you dislike. And now that you have an idea of what you're good at or what you like, you now need to sit down. Write down all of your strengths or what you think your strengths are on a piece of paper, and also what you like. And try to find career paths that are parallel to it. And if you don't know how to do that, ChatGPT, it works wonders. You can literally write down all your strengths on ChatGPT and then ask ChatGPT, look, these are my strengths. Can you give me some career opportunities or some career paths that I can go down that would really allow me to utilize my strengths? ChatGPT is going to give you some answers now. You then go back to the drawing board. You write down these career paths. You ask yourself the following questions. How long does it take to start? Do I need any certifications? What are the skill sets required for this role? What is the best possible role I can get? And if you're probably sat here wondering, why is purpose and career aligned? You need to understand that purpose is a lifelong mission. Right now, you don't have a career, you don't have a job, you don't have a skill, you don't have anything. So in order to find your purpose, one must start from the bottom. So you need to play to your strengths. Find a career that works for you. Find a career that really aligns with your strengths, that would make you wake up in the morning and enjoy going in and really helping people out. And if this is a business that you want to start, it doesn't always have to be a career. If you've got certain strengths and you want to use it to start a business, by all means do it. But part of purpose is you sitting down, looking inwards, and really working with what you have. One of the biggest issues I have with Gen Z personally is they think that they have to get a whole bunch of random things in order to achieve something or in order to get somewhere. For example, if I want to start creating YouTube videos or if I want to start creating content and I've got an iPhone, I'll start with an iPhone. Because at the beginning, I don't have any data and I don't know if I'm good at this. You can use that same example and apply it to everything. You don't need to buy a whole bunch of courses to take interest or find out if you're good at something. You can do that for free on the internet. Same way with creating content. You can post a whole bunch of videos, and if people really like what you're doing and you enjoy what you're doing, then after a while, upgrade your quality. But what do you guys tend to do? You tend to look for the best. You tend to look for the next best thing, not knowing that you can work with what you have, generate a certain level of results, and then if you need something to take you to the next level and you need to buy or do something, go do that thing. So to kind of recap, when it comes to purpose, it is not as simple as watching a YouTube video. It is not as simple as watching a documentary or buying a course. You need to look within. Sit down with yourself. Write down things on a piece of paper. My strengths. If you don't have strengths, go outside and do things. Go outside and let your curiosity take over. Then you would find things that you're good at. For example, before I started creating content, I didn't know that communication was one of my strong points. I didn't know that I was able to convey a message to people in a very convincing way. I started creating content. I wasn't really that good at the start. Then I became comfortable. The moment I became comfortable, I then realized, you know what? My strengths are actually there. I figured out what one of my strengths are. Communication, resonating with people, relating to people, motivating people. Now my life purpose is something aligned with that. As I continue through life, I'm going to look at my bank of strengths and I'm going to ask myself, how can I use these to find something that is really fulfilling? And remember how I said purpose is a lifelong journey. That's why I'm continuing through life, creating these videos, working my career, having my business on the side, and then I'm continuing to navigate through life. So purpose is a lifelong mission, and you need to look within. So that's the first thing you need to start with. So now that we've understood the importance of purpose, let's talk about motivation. Because the reality is a lot of people really struggle to motivate themselves. You procrastinate, you wake up late. Even alarms don't even work for you anymore. You drag your feet out of bed. But what I typically noticed is whenever people go down a very unfulfilling route, and I'm going to explain this a bit further, a lot of people do things simply because they were told to do things. For example, you go to university. I've always said to people, in this day and age, university is not a necessity anymore. If you don't know what you're doing with your life, going to university is simply the dumbest move you can ever make. You can sit down with yourself, ask yourself what you're good at, and if you don't know what you're good at, I said earlier, go find what you're good at. Go experience a whole bunch of different workplaces and different things. But going to university and then you graduate, where a lot of people see that graduation as an accomplishment. So you have a high. As soon as you reach that graduation, that's the peak of your life. And then you fall so far down because you realize, oh, I'm now in the real world. Nobody cares about my degree. Nobody cares about the hat that I threw up in the air. I have to actually go and get it now. And because you went down a very unfulfilling route, you went to university for the sake of going to university. And now that you've graduated, you no longer have motivation anymore. You no longer have that drive or the thing that was pushing you. Because people need to understand that once you get out of the confines of institutional education, right? There's no longer structure in your life. Before, schooling would give you structure. Oh, 9 a.m. you come here, you do a lecture. 10 a.m. you have to be here. 11 a.m. you have to do this. Same as university. As soon as you get out of that cycle and you've graduated, the pinnacle of your life, straight down. Because you no longer know what you're doing with your life. But had you really asked yourself, what are your strengths when you were 18 years old, when you were 19 years old, when you were 20 years old, and you really sat down and you said to yourself, what am I actually good at? And if I don't know, let me go find out. You take life as an adventure. A lot of people think that you have to be a finished product by 25 years old or 24 years old. Reality is you do not. And the beauty of life is someone that is 50 years old is still figuring out life, but they're on a different level to you. And I've explained this multiple times. You're on level 1 currently as an 18-year-old unskilled person. You might be looking at me as a 26-year-old that might be in tech, living abroad. I'm probably on level 8 compared to you. There's somebody that is 50 years old that is on level 16. You never ever stop figuring out life. There's never a time in your life where you sit down and you're like, you know what? I totally understand this thing called life. And that's the beauty of it. Don't put a cap over your head thinking that by 23 I have to be here. You actually do not. And that is why you can't motivate yourself. You've created so many false expectations of yourself and realities of what your life is meant to be that then you stress yourself out unnecessarily. If you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, again, judge yourself from where you are, not where others are. And this is where motivation then comes into it. If you really found something that aligns with your purpose, aka your strengths, aka the thing that makes you happy, motivating yourself isn't even that hard because you wake up in the morning and you know exactly what you're doing. And even if you know what you're doing and you struggle with motivation, one of the things that I noticed about Gen Z across the board is they really struggle when it comes to planning. They really struggle when it comes to having crystal clear goals. I've said to people many times before, you need to plan your year, your 6 months, and then monthly, and then weekly, and then daily. And if you have it structured that way, when I wake up in the morning, I don't have the mental capacity to figure out what am I doing today. That is very hard for me personally because it takes up so much mental energy. Think of it like this. Your energy is high when you first wake up. If I spend all of my energy figuring out what I'm going to do, it's going to be here. By the time I start doing work, it's going to be here. Now you don't have much energy to actually go out there and do the work, which is why I always tell people, you plan your week, your month, and then your 6 months, and then your year. And if you want to go back, year, 6 months, monthly, weekly, daily. And don't put many things down on your list of tasks. That's another thing. A lot of you guys say, I need to do this, I need to wake up here, I need to go to this place, I need to speak to this person, I need to write this. No. If you look at my daily tasks list, there's only 3 things on there. And typically it is to record content. And if I'm recording a YouTube video that day, I would say record a YouTube video, do my work. That's pretty much it. I don't really like adding a lot of things. Going to the gym comes naturally to me. I don't really need to write it down on my list of tasks. But if there's something you struggle with, write it down. Schedule a time. And if you do work at the same time every single day, it actually eliminates the whole procrastination factor. Sometimes what happens is you wake up in the morning not knowing what you want to do. Mental energy here comes down here because you spent so much time trying to figure out what you're doing. By the time you sit on your desk, your energy is probably here. You're then scrolling on TikTok. You see a random business model, energy here. You have a limited amount of energy to actually sit down and do the things you want to do. So you're sabotaging yourself. So to kind of recap on motivation, motivation isn't even a thing if your purpose is really aligned with what you're doing. And if you still struggle with motivation, chances are it's probably because you haven't really defined your goals. A year, 6 months, monthly, weekly, daily. That is it. And the last thing on the list, now that we've covered purpose and motivation, is money. And if you've got your purpose there, you know what your purpose is, you've got the motivation to really go out there, you need to understand that money is one of the easiest things to acquire. If let's say you want to start a business and the business aligns with your purpose, you want to serve people, you want to create products for people, you want to start a shop or you want to create a restaurant that really serves people, that is your purpose. You're really motivated to do it. You've set everything up. If the money aspect is what you're lacking, by simply getting a high paying job, especially if you're young, you can really invest your time and energy in getting a high paying role. Or as I call it, high income skills. You sit down with yourself, again, you ask yourself, which roles pay me the most that don't require the most upfront energy? I'll throw a few out there, right? You can do tech sales, which is what I do. You don't really need a degree. You can get into any other sides of tech. Just find a role that pays you good amount of money, that actually has a useful skill attached to it, that you can then use to fund your dreams. Purpose doesn't always have to be a certain career. Purpose doesn't always have to be a certain job. If your purpose is to serve people, you want to create a charity, you want to create a business, you want to build mosques for people, if that's your purpose and you're motivated to do it, but you need money, the best thing you can do for yourself is get a high-paying job. And the only way to get a high-paying job is to upskill yourself. From 18 to 25, you would rather spend your years really honing in on a high-income skill you can make a lot of money out of, and you've also got a skill set. So now when you leave that industry, you've got something not only to fall back on, but something that can then allow you to use it in other areas in life. Like for example, if you want to get into tech sales or if you want to do sales, you would learn how to communicate, active listening, you would understand problem solving, you would understand how to organize and plan your time. That applies to business, it applies to real life relationships, and it all comes full circle. So if you're currently lost in life and you're currently stuck in life, my honest opinion, which I can bet 100% of the time, is you haven't sat down with yourself and really asked yourself, what do I want out of this thing called life? Write down what your strengths are. Really write them down. And if you don't know what your strengths are, ask people around you. You don't even have to always go out and get a whole bunch of random jobs. Ask the people around you. Because sometimes people around us know us more than we know ourselves. Because you judge yourself harshly, and at the same time, you don't really notice some of your minor actions. Go ask your friends, what are my strengths? When they tell you a few things, believe them, write it down. Then ask yourself, how can I do something that really aligns with my purpose? Then motivation. Motivation usually goes out of the window when you've really found your purpose. But if you're not motivated, chances are you haven't got crystal clear goals. And if you've got your purpose and your motivation, but you lack the money, go get a high paying job, which is what you should focus on from 18 to 25. A high income skill. Because at least when I leave that industry, I've got a skill set that I can then apply and utilize in this thing called life. So being lost and being stuck are normal parts of life. You're no different to me, and you're no different to everyone else that's ever walked this planet. So lock in, guys, and 2025 is going to be your year.